with Arnold Dean. Hot talk, great guests. Weeknights at 6:15 from WTIC, Hartford.
BBC Radio, Canada's public broadcast.
Try Carter's Little Liver Pill. Good advice.
Good mornings only on KCMO Kansas City. It's 8 o'clock.
When you're tuned to CDS Radio.
This is the DX Central from the Static Podcast.
From Studio B of the North Shore Studios in Mandeville, Louisiana.
Greetings and welcome to the DX Central from the Static Podcast. I am your host, Lloyd Van Horn, here in Studio A of the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana, where we just wrapped up another edition of DX Central Live. And that's why we are here today. This is for DX Central Re-Live, our audio-only rebroadcast of our DX Central Live live stream that is held on Friday nights. This is for Season 6, Episode 21. And got some great stuff going on in this episode. First, we start off talking about Sporadic E in late February. Yeah, we did. We had Sporadic E in late February. So we talk about who got in on the action and what does that mean as we head into the months leading up to the summer E season. Does early season or off-season E's like this have any bearing whatsoever on what to expect? We talk a bit about that. We are halfway through our U.S. State Challenge, and the first week's been an amazing success. We have more than 600 logs. We have the lower 48 done. I mean, 1 week, guys, 1 week. And we still have a whole nother week to go. So we talk a bit about the U.S. State Challenge. We have a unique opportunity coming up over the next few weeks, and that is for spring solstice. We have daylight savings time, and we have all of that coming up here for the first week of March when that before daylight savings time changes. Some unique things happen with regards to the AM band and stations that during their sunset or sunrise have to change their patterns or their power or sign on, sign off, whatever. So we take a bit of a look at why those first few days in March are so beneficial for AM DX. So we got that. We got some live DX to get to, your shout outs and more. So make sure you stay tuned right here and bring us with you wherever you might go. And this is the DX Central from the Static Podcast. Time for DX Central Re-Live, Season 6, Episode 21.
Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central.
This week on the DX Files, Agent Static and Agent Mono find themselves investigating a strange case of RF-induced insomnia.
Look at them, Static. Thousands of them, all across the lower 48. They aren't sleeping. They aren't eating. They're just staring into the glowing amber of signal meters and waterfall displays, waiting for a sign.
Mono, it's a documented physiological phenomenon. It's called post-sunset propagation. Their circadian rhythms are simply being disrupted by a combination of caffeine and atmospheric ducting. There's a perfectly rational explanation.
Rational? Is that what the Bureau wants us to believe? Look, I've seen the log, Static. Nearly 600 entries in 6 days. They're chasing states that shouldn't even be audible this time of year. It's not just a challenge. It's a harvest. Someone is using the ionosphere to collect their data, one reception at a time.
As a scientist, I'm telling you, they're just trying to log Delaware. It's a very small state. It requires a significant amount of focus and a very low noise floor.
The truth isn't just out there, Static. It's being transmitted on 1080, and it's fading fast. We're losing the carrier. This might be our only chance to unravel the web of cover-up happening here.
Tune in to the DX Files. Well, right now. It's happening now. You are in the DX Files right now. No, seriously, if someone were to ask you, hey, what's happening? You would be dead accurate to say, the DX Files, because it is on right now, and we are in it. My friend, Look around. You see all of that DX? And what about those files over there? Do you know what those are? I will give you $1,000 if you can just guess what kind of files those are. Go ahead. Take a crack. No? Nothing? They're DX files. Honestly, it's like I'm talking to a dummy load. Stay tuned or whatever. Spoiler alert, the truth is usually just a bit of man-made interference or something.
It's a Friday night. Lloyd and the North Shore setting frequencies right. AM and FM, the airwaves collide. DX Central Live, where the signals can't hide. Tuning in the static, chasing down the sounds. Every single signal is magic we have found. All radios hum, the chatters all agree. DX Central Live is the place to be. Folks in the chat, shout out your call. From east to west, we're breaking down the walls. It's the magic of the night, where frequencies fly. Join us now on DX Central Live.
From the Gulf South
to your corner of the world,
this is DX Central Live.
Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
From the North Shore Studios here in beautiful Mandeville, Louisiana, we find ourselves in another week of DX Central Live, Season 6, Episode 21, my friends. And greetings. Salutations. Hopefully it's been a good DX week for you. I've had a decent week. Let's see. We had some E-skip in late February. That was crazy. Mexico just showing up one day. We had some nice propagation out to the west, which was nice. There was also a little bit down to the south, which wasn't as nice for me because I had all my antennas pointing north. But I know some of you were able to get in on it, which is awesome. But some nice conditions out west. I had Alberta last night. Calgary, Alberta, while we were doing our show prep for tonight's show. There's a process that we go through here on Thursday nights to get everything ready for us to go on camera here and bring the show to you live. So with that, I was doing a little DXing while I was doing some of the show prep and was able to get Alberta on 770 into the logbook. Brand new. I'd seen a couple of folks hearing them this week and was giving them a shot along with some others. Chasing after Oregon, maybe there was a little bit of a hint of him there for a second. It just wasn't enough for me to say, yeah, let's get him in the logbook. But we'll keep working on that, and we'll do some of that tonight as well. But new Alberta station, that's now 5 from Alberta. I'll take that anytime I can possibly get it. So hopefully you guys have had some fun as well. We have a couple things to talk about tonight. Obviously, we'll talk about the sporadic E that we had this week that showed up here and a couple other places. And here in North America on a couple different days. And we're going to look and see. I mean, does this tell us anything about the season to come? Is off-season or early season, I guess, sporadic E, any sort of bellwether, harbinger, telltale early warning sign of what to expect for the season? We're going to talk about that because there's going to be a lot of folks who are saying, hey, we're having sporadic E in January and February and March, or whatever. That means we're going to have this, or we're not going to have this. There's different opinions out there, so we'll talk about that and what the data actually has shown and the historical data. We're also going to talk about the upcoming really good time of the year to do some DX. There's a couple times of the year that are especially nice for AM DX. And they usually kind of coincide around the start and end of daylight savings time and equinoxes and solstices and things like that. Well, we're getting ready to have a couple of those coming up here very, very shortly. And so that first week or so of March is going to be really, really nice for grayline DX on AM. And we're going to talk about why. And we're going to talk about what you can actually do to how to help yourself be prepared for that first week of March and start getting everything ready. Because, when we hit Sunday, the clock is ticking. Because by the time we get to the following Sunday, a week later, and daylight savings time is hit, it's not going to be as fruitful. It'll still be good, but not as fruitful. So you have 1 week of great, really interesting DX to kind of help you out here. And you got a day to prepare, or a couple days to prepare for it. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Also in the chat earlier, there were some folks who were talking about FM DX and some of the alerts and knowing when there's an e-skip opening and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about FM list really briefly. I'm going to save most of that talk for when we do our kind of in the month of April, as we're getting like all the FM DX conversation that we'll be doing in April. So we're going to talk a bit tonight, though, about how to sign up for one particular piece, the alert, the FM alert, the e-alert. What does that mean? What does it do for you? And how do you do it? And then finally, we'll also be taking a look at, when it comes to FMDX, some of the things that you can expect for this month, what you should be doing this month, in the month of March that we're coming into, right? The next month we're coming into, what you should be doing now to prepare for the E-season. How can you prepare yourself? How can you get ready now so that you'll be hitting the ground running when those E-openings start in the summertime? So we're going to talk a little bit about that, because if we wait till April to talk about that, it's too late, right? That's going to be a little bit too late. So I want to talk about it now, because March is the time to do the preparation, and then the hands-on preparation, your shack, your antennas, some other things. April is finalizing all of that, getting that all done, and getting ready, because May, we're hitting it, and it could fire off at any time once you get to May, and we're under 10 weeks away from that. Just saying, we're less than 10 weeks away from the start of the sporadic E season. So May 1st is like 10 weeks. So we got some work to do. Let's do some DX here and get ready for some interesting propagation, hopefully. Like I said, I've been checking out west, northwest, and so forth. So we're going to keep that going. We're going to look for some stations out towards our west. In fact, there's one particular station I'm trying to get to our west that I'm hopeful will show up. If that doesn't work, we're going to look back to the east, the northeast over here from where I am in here in Louisiana, looking for some of the states we still need on the East Coast, like freaking South Carolina. Why have they been so absent for so many people this week, including myself? South Carolina has not shown up despite repeated checking. So maybe we can do it tonight. This DX session is brought to you by the IRCA, International Radio Club of America. You can check them out at ircaonline.org. Now, I know it says 150 degree. Actually, we're going to change that to 330 because we're on the 330 tonight. We're looking northwest. So we're going to start off on 660 because I'm chasing KTNN like they owe me money. So let's take a look and see what we got. DC counts as a state, correct. For the purposes of our challenge, yes. DC does count as a state. So it's 50 states plus DC. And that reminds me, I need to go throw some points around here on the old form. All right, the dashboard should now be updated with new point totals. I have to do that manually. I have to go in and save it down and do all this stuff. So it takes a little bit of effort. And let's look at those numbers. So 48 states plus DC. So we're just missing Alaska and Hawaii. Wink, wink, West Coast folks. Greg Caniglio, 320 points. Matthew Sattel, 320 points. Look at that. You guys are crushing it. Yeah, WTMA is one of the ones I've been chasing, Kaz. WTMA, WORD. VOC down on 560. CEO on 840. WSPO. A bunch of them. I've been chasing a bunch of the ones I used to hear when I was living down there, and that I've since heard here.
DX Central Live top of the hour alert.
It's top of the hour time frame. That means we are looking for IDs. So zip it, Lloyd. If we hear any IDs in here, we'll... Hey, Noobish. Welcome, my friend. Love having you in there. Stuart, it would be $12.50. We definitely had. We also had WHNZ there in Tampa as well. Sean, just keep trying. It's nothing I can do. It's the website. It's WordPress or WP Forms, one of the two. Hey, Mamacita. Man, I'm so happy that you stayed up with us, man. That's awesome. Thank you. Mamacita. That's Noobish from the FMDX.org web server project. That's Noobish. So happy to have you here, my friend. That means quite a bit. Thank you. All right, I want to do something really fast. Well, I'll tell you what, let's give it a couple more minutes here for this top of the hour sequence to finish up, and then we'll check that recording to double check to see if we did have WRAY. There we go. That was them. Yeah. So there we go. So that was WTMA in Charleston. So now we finally have South Carolina in there for the challenge for this week. That took a while to get South Carolina in the challenge book, logbook here, but it is done. I even fell asleep last night with my earbuds in and my Kiwi, the same Kiwi, put my earbuds in, listening to 1250, trying to hear WTMA, never heard them as I fell asleep last night. Woke up at like 5 o'clock this morning, taking the earpods out, still hadn't heard them. Finally, after I said, "Oh, I haven't heard them yet. They're not coming in." There they are. 616 miles. My goodness. Let's go back and double check really quick on that recording just to see if we did in fact have WRAY, because if so, that would be a new one, and I would like to add that to the book of the logs. So let's hit this one. I think was the one. Yeah. Right there. Yeah. That's WRAY. That's a new one here in Mandeville, and that is Indiana. I think I've already closed out Indiana for the challenge. Right? Let me double check my map. Yeah, I've already closed out Indiana, but that's a new one for me for my logbook, so I'm very happy about that. So we got a new one for the challenge and a new one for the log. That is what I call a productive, whatchamacallit, a productive DX session here for our first DX session of the night. So there we go. All right, let's do a quick break. When we come back, we've got a lot to talk about. We got, of course, your shout-outs to get to. I've got a dog that's not going to leave me alone here and wants me to take her outside, so we're going to tend to that. See, she's going nuts. And then we got to talk about the sporadic E that we saw this week. Fitting we have Nubish in here, because we had some sporadic E this week here in Mandeville, down in New Mexico, so we'll talk about that and a whole lot more. So don't go anywhere, my friends. More DX Central Live is heading your way right after this.
Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central. From the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
It's DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville. One of my favorite DX radio tracks, man. I love this track. And in fact, this one is going to be, or it is, on Volume 2 of our mixtape series. So if you like this one, here we go. Right here. Oh, I'm early. If you like that song, you want to be a patron, because our patrons are able to download our mixtape series and get a copy of our different mixtapes that we put out. So Volume 1, which is about to hit soon. I'm still putting it together and doing all the slicing and crossfades and all that stuff. That'll be up here soon, and then we'll do Volume 2. And there'll be a link for our patrons to download. You'll have to have a password to get to it and download. But the only way you can get to those is if you're a patron. So if you want to be able to download some of those DX Central, DX Radio mixtapes of some of our music, go to patreon.com/DX Central, and you'll be able to do that. And it also gets you early access to our videos, our podcasts. It gets you one of the priority access, no limit time, well, depending on which package you sign up for. You can also get like a no limit for our Kiwi, one of our Kiwis that we have here. our DX Central Kiwi, so you can stay on as long as you want. So all kinds of cool little perks. And one of the ones we're actually about to do is we're about to have a live stream Zoom call that we're going to do where we're actually walking through using Google Suites for logbooks. So if you want to use Google Sheets and Looker Studio or Google Sites or Google Forms, some of those different tools that are there, we're going to talk through that and do a working session. So it'll be a patron-only live stream that we're going to be doing. Everyone can zoom in. You can ask your questions. Hey, I want to see how this works, or show me how you do this. Things like that. So we'll be doing that here very, very, very soon. So again, it is patreon.com/DX Central. That's where you want to go. All right, let's do a couple of at least shout-outs.
Shout out loud, hear the call for every single big or small, from AM to FM, from C to C. We celebrate the ones who snag the IT. Shout out loud, let it be known, you're never DXing all alone. Through the static we found our way, shout-outs making waves today.
Yeah. It's shout-out time, and that means we're taking your shout-outs, what you've submitted by going to dxchallenges.com/shoutout and letting us know what you've been hearing. What have you heard in the past week since last time that we met? And, Sean got his in there. There we go. dxchallenges.com/shoutout. And we'll read your shout-out on the air. You can also submit an air check if you want to do so. Several folks here have done that, so we can listen into what you heard. And it's a great way for us to celebrate together, do a little virtual high five here together, and blow the horn of victory, and have some fun along the way. So let's start off with our good friend, the DX Magnet himself, Mr. Tim Trump up in Michigan, where all of our signals that we're trying to hear are landing on his antenna. That's what it feels like sometimes. After a long transatlantic drought, he says, the floodgates broke open on February 21st and netted a few new transatlantic logs. Checking my Canadian Maritime Beacon frequency 1140, I heard the distinct CBC Radio 1 sounder at 0200 UTC from CBI in Nova Scotia, which alerted me that we had good northeastern conditions. I then promptly dialed down to 650 and found, sure enough, KNR in Greenland doing well, but outperforming WSM on the northeast DCAS. That's the secret to his success, is those DCASs, man. Those things are beasts. For the first time ever, and after years of chasing, I was able to easily parallel music between 650 and 570, which confirmed reception of Greenland's 5 kilowatt transmitter on 570. All three Greenland medium wave outlets are now in the logbook, 570, 650, and 720, so that's a goal achieved. We're going to get to that one here in a second. But this wasn't the only surprise. Carefully checking Jaguar's YAS log for transatlantic signals on the 9 kilohertz split frequencies, I noticed a brief burst on 873 and on 1485 between 0315 and 0330 UTC. With careful listening for the weak audio, I was able to determine both frequencies were parallel. I couldn't identify the language, so an audio file was sent to RealDX on groups.io, and another DXer identified the language, and it was the primary language spoken in Ethiopia. Radio Ethiopia now logged on both 873 and 1485. See, I told you this guy gets all the stuff. 7,451 miles for a new African country, number 11. Audio clip, that's just from 11 countries from Africa, right? That's not his total country count. You don't want to know his total country count. It'll make you cry. Audio clip is attached of Radio Ethiopia on 873 at 0326 UTC. We're going to listen to that here in a second. But first, we have some celebrations to do. A new country is in the logbook, so that means we have to stamp a passport for our friend Tim. Tim Trump up in Michigan. Dennis says, damn, and I agree. We have to stamp the passport. We found a blank page there. I'll be honest, it's getting hard to find a blank page in Tim's passport because the man's heard it all, it feels like. So well done, my friend, there. We also have a new goal achieved, something he's been trying to accomplish. He wanted to hear all of Greenland, and now it's done. I would love to hear Greenland. That's my response to that. I want to hear Greenland. But we want to celebrate our friend Tim Trump. Yes, goal. Yes, we want to celebrate our friend Tim Trump's amazing achievement of hearing all 3 stations from Greenland there in Michigan. And then also we obviously saw the log, because new logs in the logbook, you saw the log. Kaz says getting Ethiopia on 1485 is crazy. Yeah, it's crazy work, dude. That is that's next level. So let's take a listen. This is as close as I'm ever probably going to get to hearing Ethiopia on medium wave. Let's enjoy it, shall we? I mean, I'm listening to this, and this is like normally when we have some of this transatlantic stuff, for a lot of DXers at least, there are some of you guys that are in geographically enhanced locations that it comes in and it's like you're listening to a local or something. But for the most part, for the vast majority of DXers, especially those a little further inland, when you're talking about transatlantic, when you're talking about stuff over in Europe or Africa or Asia or down under or whatever, you're like, oh, I think I heard a word, right? And so it's like a strain. This is... Well, now, of course, now it cut out. I mean, you know what I'm talking about here. When you heard the clip... I mean, that's copyable if you understand the language. You can probably understand what's being said. That's remarkable. So well done, man. I mean, seriously, in all seriousness, I know we joke around, but in all seriousness, that's an amazing accomplishment. To hear all 3 Greenland stations here in the U.S. That's tremendous. And then to get not 1 but 2 Ethiopians at the same time. And Nova Scotia. And we just kind of glossed over Nova Scotia. I mean, he heard CBI, 1140 Nova Scotia, and he used that as kind of like the way that I talk about, like, 810 or 770 out of Columbia. Right? I'm like, oh, that tells me how conditions are. And this is Nova Scotia, which most of us are just... So, well done, man. I mean, that's just outstanding. So we point of victory for you for sure. John Johnson out in Arizona, new logging while looking for a second Oregon station for the state challenge. So we finally are getting Oregon represented. On 1150, Barry, by the way, in Tennessee, Barry Bankson in Tennessee was the first one to submit a log for Oregon for our challenge. I just want to make sure I remind our West Coast folks of that fact. It took someone from Tennessee to get Oregon in the logbook. On 1150, I found KIMM in Rapid City on top of the frequency. Nice ID, Black Hills Sports Station slogan. This is my... so he was looking for his Oregon station, and he ended up getting instead 1150 KIMM out of South Dakota. So this is my 10th South Dakota station from Arizona. Brings my Mesa total to 927. So looking for one thing and finding something else. How common is that? And those are always nice little victories when you're like, hey, that's not what I was looking for, but I'll take it. So we saw a log for our friend John Johnson out in Arizona. Oh, it was like 7,451 miles, I want to say, Sean. Was what he said in there? I want to say that's what it was for the Ethiopian mileage count. Dave in Montana. a newer person here in our Slack channel that we participate in. Glad to see you in here as well, my friend. Just got back into medium wave DXing after being a ham for 24 years. Been there. I was an active shortwave and tropical band DXer back in the 1980s from Florida. Hey, Mom, you listen to this? I was an active shortwave and tropical band DXer back in the 80s from Florida. Let me tell you something. Mamacita has some stories. I'm sure Dave does too here, but Mamacita has some stories of tropical band DXing from Florida. What she used to hear down there when we lived in Jacksonville. I logged a ton of Latin American domestic stations using my trusty Sangean ATS 808 receiver with wire antenna strung up in palm trees. I'm feeling the vibe right here. I'm feeling the connection. In addition to logging 5 new stations from Mexico Saturday night, I broke my distance record by getting 1580 CKDO in Ontario on 1200 UTC on the 21st from my home in Billings, Montana. The distance is 1,456 miles, and he has a clip. It's great to be back in AMDXing. I was having a blast and feel like a kid again. Thanks to Lloyd and all the folks in the Slack channel for the camaraderie and support. Welcome back to the hobby. I always say you can walk away from the hobby and come back whenever you want because she'll still be there. She'll be there waiting for you, and you know how to jump right back in. So let's listen to this clip here, CKDO, as heard from Montana. There you go. That was a clear ID, CKDO, right? Oh, man. Well done, my friend. And so for you, that was a new Canadian province for him. So you know what that means. Yes, I know. It's a new log, but we want to get that in there. But it's a new Canadian province. So, you know what that means. He broke a milestone. He got a distance record. We got to celebrate that fact. We got to celebrate the fact he broke a distance record. Okay. He got a new Canadian province, so you know what that means. There we go. Noobish, this is what we do. We celebrate. We have a good time with these shout outs and celebrate together. So it's all, like you said earlier, I saw you mention in the chat, the community is everything, right? And that's what this is all about, is celebrating together. So well done, Dave, and really happy to have you there in the Slack channel as well, my friend. Let's do one more, and then we'll put a pin in those, and we'll pick them up in round 2. This next one is from our friend Dennis Bannister in the chat, out of Virginia, and he has 2. That's it, just 2, he says. Just 2. But they're good. It's a good 2. 840 WCPO in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and 580 WACQ in Tuskegee, in Alabama. Tuskegee, dang it. I just couldn't get it out. Tuskegee. You ever have a word, you know the word, but your brain's like, not today, son. Tuskegee, Alabama. There we go. All right, well done, Dennis, my friend. And glad to see you getting some new ones in the logbook. So like I said, we're going to put a pin in where we are here, and we're going to pick up in round 2 in the next hour with Stuart, Rick, Mexico Mike J, Kaz himself. Yes, that Kaz. And Sean Cusco in Illinois. So let's talk about FMDX. Well, we have Noobish here in the chat right now because it's getting late for him right now, and I don't want him to have to be bleary-eyed here. at 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning waiting for me to talk about FM eSkip because that's something I know he's very interested in. So eSkip did arrive here this week here in the States. And so I want to take a look really quick at some of the maps here and kind of show you what came in. And then we're going to talk a bit about what does that mean for the upcoming DX season, because you're going to, I promise you, you're going to hear people in the DX community have this conversation. Oh, we got some E's this week in late February. That means the season's going to be awesome. Or, I don't know, man, we're getting all the E's now. That means the season's not going to have any energy left. You're going to hear both of those conversations at some point from somebody. And the more that we have in March or April, if we do, the more you're going to hear that. And then if we went from January and February and December, we had a little bit too. If we go to these months having stuff and then we don't see anything until May, somebody's going to say, oh, we got all of our E's out, so it's dead. Now we're not going to have a good season. You're going to hear that. So we're going to try to talk about what the truth actually is. So first off, let me go up here and put the old computer screen on the map, or the map on the screen here. This is, let's start back and see what day was that first one. It was Monday or Tuesday, 23rd. So let's go to the 23rd. Okay, so we did it. How about this Monday? So 36 logs. So it wasn't a huge opening, and it was very isolated geographically, as you can kind of see here. But this, we're talking about February, folks. So the fact that we got anything is pretty remarkable. So it was definitely a cloud centered right here off the Louisiana, Texas coast, just to my southwest. In fact, I was kind of surprised that I was in there at all on this one when we started seeing some of the stuff from down here in Mexico coming in. I thought it might be a little close, but we were able to get in on it. And you'll see here, Mexico was seeing up into parts of Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Illinois, Alabama, Mississippi, into Florida. So a nice little spread here, depending on the angle. There was some folks over here, some folks over here. So depending on the angle that you were hitting from down here in Mexico, kind of talked about, kind of influenced where your DX was going to arrive at there. And then from here in Mandeville, where I am, we were seeing pretty tight cluster here around Puebla. Let's see, where were some of the other ones in here? Zamora was in there. There's a couple Mexico cities in here, I think, as well. So, it was kind of a tight little cluster right in that little spot right there for me. There wasn't a lot of movement on this cloud that I could really see. So, this was very typical of what I would expect for like an early May opening or like a late August opening. And it was also kind of southerly kind of oriented, which is another thing I would expect May or August. The data kind of alludes to that, right? That you'll have a little bit more southerly stuff earlier or later in the season, and things kind of shift up north towards the middle. That's just kind of how the data shows that it typically happens. Now, there are exceptions to that, but that's the general trend. It's what we call in the corporate world directionally accurate. I can't believe I'm bringing that to the live stream, but here we go. So that was Monday. And then we got to, Tuesday the 24th. We had a little bit in here as well. On the 24th, you'll see. Again, kind of the same general area that we had coming down into here into Mexico hearing up. So kind of the same basic place. Maybe that cloud shifted a little bit to the east. If I remember right, some of this was around that time we were right around midnight UTC, if I remember right. So, yeah, this was a bit of a holdover. So 62 here, 36 from the Monday. So if you kind of combine those two, looking at that as one event, that's 98. So just under 100 logs. So that's right there on that threshold of like, hey, that's not a bad little opening. Up Arkansas getting down into the action here as well, down into Mexico. So that was kind of the Monday thing. And then we get into Wednesday, 25th, and nothing. And then we get into yesterday, the 26th, and this was a nice little surprise. I got the alert on this one. And this was from down here in Lakeland, Florida. And I think, Stuart, were you the one that was down in Florida as well seeing this, I believe, if I remember correctly from the Slack channel. Up into Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, and so forth. So a nice little kind of northwest opening from Florida. This one, I feel like the cloud was either right on top of me or right here just to my north in Mississippi, so I didn't get in on this one at all. But again, what are we seeing? It's a trend. Kind of this little area right in here along the kind of the Gulf Coast, something that's kind of more southerly. That's pretty common for like an out of season or like an early late season kind of opening here in the States. So, and that was the last one that we had here so far. So two days of activity here, a total of about 130 logs total for the week. Not too shabby, considering we're talking about February here. So what does this mean? What does this mean for our upcoming summer sporadic E season? It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. This has been studied every which way, up and down, using a lot of different data that I've looked at, and also some of the data that PJ Dyer did from Texas over the span of several decades. There's no correlation that has been found in the data, to date at least, to indicate that any off-season or early season activity has any bearing whatsoever on what's going to happen in the actual season. It doesn't relate to it. Now, is it encouraging to me? I'll say that. So the data doesn't show anything, but is it encouraging to me that there is enough material there in that layer of the ionosphere and the conditions are good enough that we're seeing activity right now? That's encouraging. Does that mean it's going to continue into the summer? We'll just have to wait and see. There's nothing in any of the data that says activity in January or, those big midwinter openings, activity in January, activity in February or March or April. What happens there has no bearing on the summer season. Statistically and data backed, there's no correlation. There have been years where we've had a lot of that and had nothing in the summer. There's been years we had a lot of that and had a big summer. There's been years where there was nothing and then a big summer, then years of nothing and then nothing, right? So there's all the possibilities are there, right? It's there's not a correlation that says, ooh, when you have this kind of activity kind of happening early on or off season, that means the ionosphere is primed. Not necessarily. It's encouraging because what we saw in 2024 was we saw a ionosphere that either didn't have the conditions or didn't have the material, that meteor dust material that could be ionized to create these openings, or it was sparse enough that it wasn't able to be like a long-term event for most folks here in the States, in North America, to get in on. So you're going to hear people talk about it. So if you hear someone who's like getting you like really, really jazzed up about this big coming up FM season in the summertime because of what we're seeing now, take that with a grain of salt. Likewise, if you hear someone playing Debbie Downer, that this means we're going to have in the summer, don't let it get you down. Okay? There's no statistical data correlation that has been found to date. That can change as more data is accumulated, as more analysis is done. That's one of the things that we're trying to do a lot is around the data. What does the data tell us? But to date, none of the data that's been looked at, and this includes 6 meters, by the way. This includes not just FM, but also all the research that's been done on 6 meter sporadic E. They can't find any correlation. So we shall have to wait and see. All right. While we're talking about FM, I do want to also do this as well. Let's talk about FM list. Because one of the questions came up earlier in the chat. We were talking about the opening, and it was like, hey, when did that happen? I didn't know that was going on. There's an easy way for you to do this. Now, we have a video that we have on our YouTube channel for getting prepared for the upcoming FM DX season. And in that video, we talk about FM list as a general concept, and how to use it, how to navigate it, what it can be useful for, okay? And so I'm going to put that link, boom, there in the chat. Sean says, past performance is not indicative of future results. There has never been anything that I was more true of than sporadic E. That is something I have absolutely learned. Now, having said that, one of the things that I have noticed in the data, and I saw this in Pat's data, I saw it in the FM list data that I've been analyzing over the last couple of years, is that there are certain milestones, markers. There's certain things that you can get to that will tell you, generally speaking, again, directionally accurate, what's going on that season. I saw it last year early on. I saw there were like these big bursts of days of high activity. And then we would have stretches of nothing. And I saw that early on, and I was like, if this continues and we keep having like big days, especially if we get like a really big day, I didn't think we were going to get July 4th, but we got a July 4th. But if we keep getting these like big days where it's just like just a big day, but then like a whole lot of nothing in between, we're going to have big numbers, but people are going to feel that down because what you're looking for, you don't care if like I had a big day and then a week later I had another big day. That those two big days aren't enough to sustain you in that interim in between. You need a little bit kind of consistent, every day, a little bit here, a little bit there, maybe a day off. Now let's get some more in, right? So that's what people are looking for, is more consistent openings. Consistent and like lingering around. And so I knew we were going to be heading down a path where we were going to have big numbers. But I also thought to myself, but people are not going to like it because there's going to be these gaps where you just don't have anything going on. And that's going to sour the view. So it's going to be kind of And that's exactly where we landed. So there are things that you can kind of see in the data that kind of point to what kind of year it's developing into being. And you can typically see that by about early to mid-June. By early to mid-June, you have a pretty good idea what kind of season you're looking at. Now, that's not to say that it can't change, because all of a sudden you can have a July of 2021 where the season was kind of like, okay, we're kind of having this kind of season, and all of a sudden July of 2021 shows up and you're like, I cannot keep up with all the openings. My hard drives are full. I don't have time to review all these things. This is crazy. Like, you cram an entire season into 1 month kind of thing, and really over like 1 week. That's what July of 21 was. And it came out of nowhere. So that can happen. But generally speaking, you can usually kind of see from the early returns what direction you're heading in. So I'm off track. FM list. There is a great thing that you can use here to alert you when there is an e-skip opening that's occurring. So you'll want to go up here and you'll want to make sure you're registered for one thing. Make sure you have registered. You're going to want to do this anyway. But make sure you're registered for an account at FM List. And then once you're in, go to this My FM area right up here at the top. And you're going to see this box right here. Now, for you, it's going to be red. Right here, it's going to say ESA is off. Okay, if you've not already done this process I'm about to show you. It's going to say ESA is off. It's going to be a red box. That is the E-alert. And what this alert basically does is, as people submit their loggings to FM List, so yes, it's dependent on people submitting their logs to FM List. I'm going to save that soapbox for a later episode, but just know I've got a soapbox to talk about with that. As people submit their logs to FM List, what it then does is it knows where you're located, because part of your process when you set up an account is you have to pinpoint your location. So then it's going to look at your location. It's going to say, should this DXer be potentially in a path that could be experiencing sporadic E based on the other paths that are being reported. So if I'm sitting here in Louisiana and I've got Boot Crew North up here in Arkansas hearing down into Mexico, and depending on where that cloud is, do I have a shot at getting something on that cloud as well? And the answer is probably, depending again where the cloud is. Just like I had Miami was seeing the Gulf, like Mexico Gulf Coast, so they were seeing across the Gulf. That means the cloud was to my south. I was hearing Jamaica, right due south almost from here. So you kind of have that path that crosses. So based off of that, these e-alerts are looking and saying, okay, with your location, should you be experiencing anything off of this cloud? And if the answer is yes, it's going to send you an email alert to let you know, hey, pay attention. There's E's going on that you may be able to be a part of. It's not a guarantee, because as you guys know, a lot of times these E openings can be one direction. So it's just me hearing Mexico, or maybe it's just Mexico hearing my area. Can't tell you how many times that's happened. Maybe it's a couple of directions where Mexico's hearing me and I'm hearing Mexico, and someone over here in Florida is hearing across, but the other pass off to the side or not. It just depends on the cloud, and the makeup of the cloud, and the density of the cloud, and all that kind of stuff. But there's a potential that you could. And so As long as there's a potential, you're going to want to check. So go up here where it says ESA is off, rather, and click that, and it's going to say, would you like to start the service for this location? You hit OK, and it's going to say a confirmation has been sent to your email address. If you do not receive any confirmation, please check your email address in FM list to make sure. So this can be the email address you use to sign up. So then you hit OK, and it's going to send you a confirmation. So what this is going to do is when there is propagation, e-skip propagation, that is impacting a path that could result in you seeing sporadic E at your location, you're going to get an email. And I have a special little notification bell on my phone. So when that email comes in, it gives me a special notification. So I'm like, ooh, pay attention, Lloyd. This one's important. I don't miss the E openings like I used to. Very rarely. Very, very rarely. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that you register for FM list, that you set up your account, and then click on that box and turn it from red to green. And that video that I linked up here is the link that I put up here for my video shows you how to do the whole registration process. Okay, so there you go. So that's my spiel on FM for this first hour. Let's talk about some AMDX. So you guys, we're in the middle of our U.S. challenge, our U.S. state challenge here, and you're absolutely crushing it, by the way. More than 600 logs in 1 week. More than, right now, we're at 624. I bet you that number is bigger now. 625. I kind of had a feeling. 625 logs in 1 week submitted by you, our DX challenge entrants. 16 DXers, 331 unique stations, 49 states, 48 plus DC. That's why it says including DC right here. 2,200 miles, or just under 2,300 miles is the furthest reception. We have our breakdown by logs. Here's the map. I mean, that's awesome. In 1 week, you guys got the lower 48 knocked out. That's crazy. And if you scroll down here to the bottom, you'll see the score. So, a reminder, so for the first station you log from a state, you get 5 points. You log a second station, you get now another 5 for a total of 10 points. Anything more than 2 stations logged, you're not going to get extra points. You're going to show up here for like total number of stations logged or whatever, but you're not going to show up down here beyond just those first 10 points. So from a scoring standpoint, it's just the first 10 points for a state. And you can kind of see the breakdown here. Greg is just crushing us. Him and Matthew both, we're standing in their shadow. But I wanted to show you this because there's a cool thing you can actually do here. And this is one of the reasons I kind of put this together this way. Let's say you're like, what have I heard? I use this a lot. I use this a ton this week, actually, to make sure I was hitting getting all my states kind of closed out with 2 logs. Go up here into these boxes up here at the top where it says DXer name. You can also do it here on the map itself. You can just type in your name here. Either one will filter the entire page. Okay. So I'm just going to type in Lloyd. I've heard 35 states, and you'll see the ones that are in dark green are the ones I've heard 2. The ones in light green are ones I've heard 1. Anything that's not green at all is a state that I haven't logged yet. And then you can scroll up and you can see your entire log. You can see the total number of stations. You can see how many states. You can see your further reception, all that kind of stuff. And then you can go down and you can see your points, and you can see the logs by state, how many, all the different states that you've heard. You can see all that here as well. So you got all those stats. Once you filter it by your name, it filters the entire page. Okay. Let's say that's not my problem. Let's say I'm good with what I've got. I know what I'm doing, but I want to know what other people are hearing. Like, hey, I'm chasing after Oregon. Capital O, capital R. Who has heard Oregon? Well, so far we've got Stephanie, we've got John. Ooh, there's Barry. Barry's on the East Coast. That means I might have a shot. What did he hear? He heard KDZR on 1640. So that's where I would then go in, and I can use that data that's in there that you guys are submitting. I can use it to help me get more stuff in my logbook. So this isn't just... The medium wave frequency challenge has never just been about, hey, I won. That's nice. That's cool. But the bigger thing here is that it's an opportunity for us to get new stuff in the logbook or to revisit some stuff that we don't normally go back to because I'm like, I've already heard Missouri. I've already heard Camelback. I've already heard, WGN. It's a chance for us to revisit those that we don't maybe do a lot of DXing with. or specific frequencies that we don't do a lot of DXing with, and a chance for us to stretch our skills and try to get new stuff in the log. I saw Mexico Mike J said some really awesome stuff in the Slack channel today about how this challenge has been helping him to push to get new stuff, and he's been getting new stuff in the logbook because of it. That's the point of the challenge. Is we're going to have a theme we're going to focus on, or a frequency range we're going to focus on, and we're going to use that to our advantage as DXers to stretch our skills and push us to get new stuff in the logbook. That's the point of these things. And we do it all at the same time, so we're comparing notes and we're sharing information, and we're helping each other out. That's what we're trying to do here. And with this, we have these filter boxes up here. You have the filter box that I mentioned here as well. You can use this data that everyone else is submitting to help you with trying to get more stuff in your logbook and overall and for the challenge. We also have the overall all-season analysis page that we put together. So this has everything up until the current challenge. It doesn't have the current challenge stuff, but everything from 2021 till now, till last week basically, is in this all seasons analysis page. And it takes it a second here because there's so many logs. It takes it a second to refresh the data, but once it refreshes, boom, there it is. Now you've got access to all of the accumulated data, 34,000 plus logs. We're probably going to be close to another 1,000 that we're going to be adding in here, so we'll be over 35 by the time we get to our next time we update this list. And you'll see all the stuff that we have over here on the side. So if you're trying to find, I don't know where to DX, I don't know what stations to target to get a certain state or a certain whatever I'm trying to get, these dashboards are great. So the current dashboard is super helpful because you can see what people are hearing right now, like the last 2 weeks. You can read their notes about programming information. That's why I always encourage everybody to be as detailed as possible. So you can say, hey, I got a Sean Hannity station here on this frequency. Well, if someone else has mentioned that, you can be able to find that. So there you go. And that's where I have, like over here, there's one of the boxes right here is for notes. Sean Hannity. And there's a Sean Hannity log right here from WRVA in Richmond. So if you're on 1140 hearing Sean Hannity, there's a good chance it might be WRVA. That can be a target for you. So great work this week, guys. You guys are absolutely crushing it on the challenge. 600 plus logs is just phenomenal. I didn't think we'd be able to hit that kind of number that fast. I thought that might be like our total when we get like to next week, when we launch our next challenge. But you guys have done that in 1 week. So kudos to all of you. Horn of victory. You're crushing it. You are absolutely crushing it. All right. Next hour, we're going to talk about spring and the summer solstice. The daylight savings time start and spring equinox and all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about all that coming up here on our next hour and how that's going to help you and benefit you. So that's going to be our main focus for hour 2. Plus, we got more of your shout outs to get to. But now I want to do some DX. And this DX session brought to you by the National Radio Club. NationalRadioClub.org is where you go for more information about becoming a member of the oldest DX club, I think, in the world. Remember, right? It's the world. Yeah. All right, let's go back to 660 because I really want KTNN in my my challenge log. I've heard him here before a couple times, but I don't have him this week for the challenge, and we need to fix that. So we're going to bring up their stream. All right, so that's the KTNN live stream. Let's see what we got on our side.
Our dollar, your problem. Solve your financial advisor before. Call 800-900-8000.
They're in there. They're in there. They're in my right ear on my headphones. Yeah. They're in my right ear. They're starting to become more center. Now they're starting to fade out a bit. Yeah. Frequency offsets on AM. Fantastic question. So some of these, I'm gonna do this real quick because I know we're coming up on top of the hour. So some of these stations, when they're broadcasting, you think I'm going to tune in a 660, right? So that means that transmitter's signal should be on 660, but not every transmitter is dead on, right on their exact frequency. Sometimes they're just a little bit off. Sometimes they'll drift. Like if you ever have a chance to watch our carrier here on WWL 870 out of New Orleans, that carrier, it drifts. It drifts all over the place. It looks like a driver that's lost control of the car. And so the reason that we'll post these a lot of times is let's say I'm sitting on 1090 and there's a station on 1090.280 out of Columbia. And we all, this through other DXers have reported that station, in Columbia is at 1090.280. Well, then if I'm looking and I'm like, do I have that Columbia? I can look and see if 1090.280 on my screen, if I've got that trace. And if so, if I can get audio out of it, that can help me identify that station. Now, I don't rely on the offset entirely because there may be another station at that same offset, especially the closer you get down to the fundamental frequency, right? So the closer you get to 1090 or 660 or whatever, the closer you get, the more stations you're going to have kind of bundled in right there. But those that are really kind of far off to the side, either way, below or above, those can be a really good alert to let you know that you've got a station that is broadcasting with a transmitter that's not quite on frequency. It's just a little bit off. And that's not just international stuff. There are some U.S. stations that have that as well. So it can be another way for us to identify those stations. So that's why those offsets are useful and helpful. Hopefully that has answered your question. All right, now that we've got KTNN, do we dare? Do we dare try KFI? And here's where I go. This has been a big strategy for me this week, is finding a Kiwi that is located near the station I'm targeting. In this case, let's say California. So this one here in Irvine is one I've been on a lot this week, looking for KFI. I don't like these that make me do that. You'll never have to do that on ours. 640.
You know this, right?
So now I can hear what the signal is for KFI there in LA, even though I'm here in Louisiana, the other LA. I can hear their signal, and now I can compare that to my signal and see what I'm hearing.
I just thought that's money that's just evaporating off of that.
Let's see if I hear any echo here.
I only could see the money. I just couldn't enjoy the food. Does this theme come up in money sign? That's what I'm saying. In my mind, it does. In my mind, it really does.
DX Central Live, top of the hour alert.
It's going to be a tough one with talk.
Head the landmark of U.S. February, getting
So we have WLS at Oklahoma. Which their actual call sign is KWPN. So we got KWPN there in Oklahoma with sports talk. I don't hear KFI in there at all. Now let's come back over here and let's do
This is the Oklahoma City Thunder pregame show. Now on the Oklahoma City Thunder Radio Network.
you know who I have not heard this week?
The Thunder taking on the Nuggets. The key words, we're not going to have a nuclear
South Dakota.
Weapon. They have to say, we're not going to have a nuclear weapon. American
on 91.9 FM, WMKL, Hammock, Miami, and in Tennessee on 1280 AM, WMCP, Columbia, with translator W255DK, 98.9 FM, also in Columbia.
You're listening to Radio Maria, a Christian voice in your home. Please enjoy this.
That's KJMJ here in Louisiana. So Stuart, this actually right here demonstrates what I was talking about earlier with the offset. So this big, thick red line right here, this is one or more signals here on 580 directly, right? So somewhere right in this little area right here, plus or minus like a couple of hertz here or there, that's generally speaking either one or more stations on 580. Then you've got this green line right here that's sitting right about 580.017. That's another station. And then you've got another red line over here at 580.030-ish, 580.029. That's another station as well. And you can actually go, let me mute my thing here. I can look at a list of known offsets that people have reported to say, hey, like for me, I live in New Orleans. So if I have a station that's at, 600.10 or 12 or something, or .09, I can come back and say, hey, my local station here in New Orleans on 600.09. And other DXers can say, yeah, seeing the same thing, right? So let's use this one here. So this is 580.030, give or take a little. I'm gonna look here at my list. You can't see it on screen. I'm gonna look in the list here. So WELO in Tupelo, Mississippi, is a known offset of 580.027. So that's probably who that is, and they are known to come here pretty nicely. And that also gives you, if you listen, you hear how there's kind of like a warble, not like the Cuban wobblers, but like a warble to the signal. Listen to it here.
Last Sunday, and just try to share a little bit about.
You hear that? If you have your headphones on, you kind of almost hear something like bouncing back and forth between your ears.
What I'm talking about in a minute.
That's because you have someone who's slightly off frequency, and so that effect is what you're actually hearing. Now, if they're far enough off the frequency, you'll actually hear an audible, we call a heterodyne, a hit. And so it might be like, let me see if I can do this here, if I have any shot at... If I was still in Charleston, I know I could pull this off. Yeah, no way in hell. But when I lived in Charleston, I would tune in to 890, and on 891... there was a 1 kilohertz heterodyne, right, that I could hear on 890, and it was because there was an Algerian station on 891, right? You'll also hear that sometimes from other stations. If they're just enough off frequency, you actually hear like a het. You'll hear the tone, a constant ringing tone. That's why, because of those stations that are slightly off frequency. So hope that is helpful. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about spring and what that means for AMDX. And we're going to go revisit FM really fast because we're going to talk about what you need to be doing, speaking of spring cleaning, what you need to be doing in March to prepare for the upcoming FM season coming in the summer. It'll be here before you know it. Like I said, we're less than 10 weeks from May 1st. So, hop to, right? Let's go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more DX Central Live heading your way.
Keep up with DX Central. Follow us on Twitter at DX Central. From the DX Central North Shore Studios, this is DXC Live. Now here's your host, Lloyd Van Horn.
It's DX Central Live from the North Shore Studios here in Mandeville, Louisiana.
The signal is stark.
The signal is strong.
Through the dark, über dem Land.
Over the land.
Little krautrock for you guys.
White again.
Keep going.
I was going back and one more.
Mensch-Maschine Interface.
That groove, man.
Mensch-Maschine Interface. Senden, empfangen.
There you go. I was reading through the chat, getting caught up on the chat because when I'm presenting here and talking and doing all that kind of stuff, it's hard to also be looking at the chat at the same time and seeing all the stuff because you guys are just boop, 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 boop. Thomas Lang asked about 1640, and is this a AM contest or challenge or what? It's AM. For here in the U.S., North America, well, specifically mostly U.S., there is some Mexico as well, and maybe a little in Canada. We have stations in that 1600 to 1700 range as well. So this is AM broadcast challenge this week. Now, when we get in towards April, and we are starting to prepare for the upcoming FM season, you might see some of those FM challenges sprinkle back in as we get wrapping up for the Summer of DX. Because, yes, we're going to do the Summer of DX challenge again this year. We're going to do this. That was a lot of fun last year. I know Greg absolutely just, tore it down. Greg Caniglio last year. So we're going to do the FM and AM Summer of DX challenge this year. I'm trying to think of some ways we can add more to it. I loved the grid chase last year. That was so much fun on FM. That was so much fun. I really enjoyed the grid chase. So that's coming back. We're doing the grid chase again this year for the Summer DX. But I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, let's get to some more of them old shout-outs.
Shout out loud, hear the call for every single big or small, from AM to FM to C to C. We celebrate the ones who slag the IT. Shout out loud, let it be known, you're never DXing all alone. Through the static we found our way. Shout outs making waves today.
All right. Stuart. Yeah, I've got That's all there on that analysis page, the all-season analysis page. All the Summer DX stuff is included in that, right? So it's everything. It's all this season stuff, and then also all the summer challenges are also included in that data as well. So it's there. I think the only thing I'm missing is the grids in the score. I don't think I totaled up the score on that page, but I think that's on the Summer of DX from like the Summer of DX challenge page from last year. I think that's in there, or maybe there was still some work I had to do. That's right. We'll get that there. And I think this year, because people were asking about it last year and we didn't do it last year, I think we'll bring back some more Summer DX merch, some T-shirts and stuff, because I still wear mine, my 2024 Summer of DX shirt. I love it. We might bring that back again this year. All right. Shout out time means it's time for us to celebrate together, and you tell us what you've been hearing since last time we met, and we broadcast it out to the masses. All 20 of you. Or whatever. We broadcast it out to the masses, and we celebrate together with the virtual high five, the horn of victory, and all that fun stuff. We're going to start with our friend Stuart up in Michigan. Says, I had an absolute blast on vacation this past week in Florida. I knew that was you. Near Orlando. Not only was it great to hear the local stations down there again, but I even heard a number of stations that I previously had logged via eSkip during the past year, as well as the first eSkip station that I ever received. I also realized how full the dial is in the Orlando area with tons of lower power stations and translators, making it rather tough to DX from there. Mm-hmm. That's sure, yeah, it definitely is. Despite this challenge, I received quite a bit of unexpected DX near the end of the trip. Oh, I used to done some DX from down that way. It's interesting, to say the least. There's a reason why Florida is the number one herd state in North America for sporadic E. There's a reason. Here are all of my Tropo catches from the hotel room this past Tuesday and Wednesday night on FM 103.7 The Gator in Gainesville. WRUF. I think I've heard them from here on Tropo, I think. Rocket 100.5 WHHZ in Newberry, Florida. 98.5 WKTK in Crystal River. Holmes Beach, K-Love, 98.7. News Talk, 97.3, The Sky, WSKY, in McCompany. I don't remember how you say that one. Anyway. Maxima FM, WYUU, that's one of my Tropo regulars. Safety Harbor on 92.5. Previously heard with RDS via eSkip from home on the car radio. Yeah. They get out well. They get out very well. They're, like I said, they're one of my Tropo regs. Sunny 107.9 WEAT in West Palm Beach, Florida. News 89.9 WJCT in Jacksonville, Florida. WGYL 93.7 in Vero Beach. Maxima 97.3, possibly stunting in Fort Myers Beach. 99.3 WWCN. And no other radio. We had WWF 69, the .425 in Fort Pierce. WXJ 60, the .475 in Gainesville. KEC 50.475 in West Palm Beach. If that wasn't enough, on Thursday morning at the airport, I happened to be on the W Logger reviewing the Tropo catches when I suddenly saw Jim in Missouri reporting eSkip to Miami. I then whipped out my TEF to see if I could get the reverse path, and I couldn't be happier and luckier with my results. Still facing a challenging and somewhat unfamiliar dial, as well as tired brain. I miraculously logged stations during that opening, 2 of which identified later with the help of the database from WTFDA. Those were 92.9 The River, the KRQV in Tulsa, 92.9 KVRE in Hot Springs Village, Arkansas, 93.3 The Lake FM in Newcastle, Oklahoma, 1,062 miles. That's pretty good. He'd heard that on July 4th from home as well. Bot Radio, KQCV in Shawnee, Oklahoma, 95.1. I think I've heard them from here. I think I did on Sporadic E. He did as well on July 4th again. 99.7 The Wolf, KWFF in Mustang, Oklahoma. And we have a clip This is KRQV 92.9 The River in Tulsa, a distance of 1,014 miles. Again, I'm going to stress this, February E. That's outstanding. That is outstanding, man. Well done. So we got a couple of things we got to celebrate here. We got new logs. And we got some milestones in here. We got an unfamiliar band. We got some sporadic-y in February. And we got you got to have some fun on the NOAA band and on FM. There you go, man. Well done, dude. Well done. Love it, love it, love it. Anytime, I look at it this way. Anytime we're getting FM and it's not May, June, July, August, I consider that, and it's especially sporadic-y, we call that a gift. And we don't look gift horses in the mouth. We just say, yeah. Well done, my friend. Next up, we got Rick up in Omaha. Just about everyone in the DX community by now knows about the demise last Friday afternoon of legendary 590 frequency here in Omaha, KXSP. Right when I was going to need them for the freaking challenge. And a lot of us were needing them for the freaking challenge. Because let me put it this way. I haven't heard KRVN yet. I heard KFAB once. But getting that second Nebraska station, that state is hard. South Dakota and Nebraska both are hard. Unless you're like, up that way. For the rest of us, those are hard states. Harder than they need to be. I've been cleaning up since. So this went from like famine to feast for Rick. I've been cleaning up since and have new ones to report in chronological order. CMBF, Havana, Cuba. WVLK, Lexington, Kentucky. WMBS, Uniontown, Pennsylvania. That's nice. I like that. XEPH in Mexico City. XEFD, Reynosa. And KLBJ in Austin. There is a milestone to report this time around as well, depending on whether a February 10th EAS test on 1310 was coming from a station in Kansas or was actually emanating from neighboring KZYM in Joplin. Either WVLK or WMBS will go into the books as my 1,000th U.S. log on medium wave. Either way, I've passed the barrier. Still going to stay on 590 for the foreseeable hours, as there's a few stations from Colorado, Montana, and Michigan that I am still chasing. So 1,000 stations from the United States for our friend Rick. So what are we going to do here? We're going to start off with this right here. Several new logs and some Latin American stations. Oops, wrong button. But the big one, I don't get to use this one very often. Well deserved, man. And again, that's just U.S. stations. That's not counting Canadians and Colombians and Mexico and Cuba. 1,000 just U.S. Well done, man. Well done. I had to have the help of the other countries to get to my 1,000 overall, right? But you got 1,000 U.S. stations in the log. You're doing something right. I don't even know if I have 1,000 U.S. stations. Do I? I didn't even think about that until just now. I don't think I do. Let's see. Because I think with all the stations from Mexico and Colombia and all that, I think that's... Let's see. 845. I have 155 to go to catch up. So, well done, man. That's outstanding. Bravo, sir. Bravo, bravo, bravo. And keep hammering that 590. When you get one of those where it opens up like that for you, man, that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. That's a great way to break out of the monotony of some of the frequencies we find ourselves on sometimes out of routine. Mexico, Mike J is up next with 2 E-skip catches on FM, one from Alabama and Florida. 14 new logs on AM, including 980 KOKA out of Shreveport, Louisiana, next to YSQV in San Miguel, El Salvador, or Radio Mia Cadena Continental. And not one, but 2 new catches from the state of Washington. Not his first Washington State's catches, but 2 new ones from Washington. 1550 KRPI in Ferndale and 1520 KKXA in Snohomish. So, we're going to start off with a log. Haley, don't toy with my emotions like that. Are they really? Let's go to my Northwest wire. Oh! Ah! Come on. Oh, they're still loud here. Now, unless they haven't made the change yet, but if they've made the change, they're still loud here. I cannot wait for the day that they just part the sea so we can get some other stuff on 1090 domestically here. So we got the new log for our friend Mike, and we got some new Latin American stations for him as well. And you got that station out of Louisiana, so you know what that means, right? Grab a spoon. Oh, come on. Really? That's what I was hoping for. I was hoping for the 80 watts. Oh. 3,400 watts is going to still be a beast. I really wanted that 80 watts. Crap. He's got a clip here for us, so let's listen to his clip here. This is KRPI Washington. Woo. Listen to that ID, how clear that is. Wow, that's nice. That's nice. That's really nice. From down, I want you guys to think about that. That's from down in Mexico. Just a little bit further west than I am here, but way south. And he's hearing Washington. That's part of the fact that he has a little distance between him and some of those bigger stations that some folks have to kind of navigate around. He's got some distance. That opens things up a bit. That's remarkable, man. 90% of DX is location. The other 90% is antennas. I can do math. Kaz, our friend Kaz in here in Illinois. 2 new from Sunset Skip tonight at 5 p.m. Central. WIWA in Eatonville, Florida on 1270 and 1370 WTKA, Tompkinsville, Kentucky. Decent conditions tonight. Line noise is minimal, so new ones in the log. All right, my friend Kaz, we celebrate you as always. Jacob says Washington to Mexico makes Alaska seem possible to Minnesota. When I heard Vancouver and Seattle, now I know, at least in the case of Seattle, they were non-directional at the time. But when I heard Vancouver from here, that was when I was like, okay, anything is possible. I joke around sometimes like, oh, I have no shot at that. But anything is possible. Once you hear that one station that makes you go, if I'm hearing that, and that Vancouver station for me was through KWKH. Remember, I had to go on 1130 through KWKH to get to Vancouver. Among all the other stations that are like La Mejor and some of these others, I had to go through all those to get to Vancouver. So the fact that I was able to pull that off, the conditions were just right? So there's going to be that station that we run across sometimes. I'm saying this especially for our newer folks. There's going to be that station you run across sometimes that makes you realize never say never. And it doesn't have to be fancy schmancy equipment pulling it off either. I remember on a long wire antenna hearing Alberta from North Carolina one night on top of WRVA. WRVA was way down. They had faded way down, and Alberta was coming in. And I was using a long wire antenna on a Drake R8. And I was in western North Carolina. Never say never. Anything is possible. And I truly believe this. If anyone who is not located in the Pacific Northwest is going to hear Alaska here in the U.S., it's going to be one of two people. It's going to be either Tim Trump, because it's Tim Trump, or it's going to be Jacob, because that man has a plan. He knows the band. He knows his targets. He knows when and where to listen and what little clues to clue him in if he's going to make a shot at it. So it's either going to be Tim or Jacob that's going to be the first one in the lower 48 that's not Pacific Northwest. He's going to be the first one here to get Alaska. Mark my words, one of those two. Sean Kuzco up in Illinois, having a great time with the state challenges this week. This is my favorite challenge of the entire season, with the possible exception of the No SDR All Live DX challenge. Funny you should say that. 38 states logged so far. Most of the logs haven't been a surprise, but I did snag 2 new logs for the challenge. KYWN 89, that's 890. Meridian, Idaho. I was surprised to hear them. Yeah, 890. Under WLS, a terrible pest for me. Again, I want you to think about this. Sean's in Illinois. He's on 890. What is also on 890 in the state of Illinois? WLS Chicago. However, he heard Idaho. Nothing is impossible. While he's hearing Idaho from Illinois, check this next one. WSYB 1300 in Vermont. Only my second Vermont ever. I will gladly take it. So that's not even his first Vermont. So we heard Vermont and Idaho from Illinois in the same week. Nothing is impossible. Next week should be fun as I try to catch the leaders score-wise. Maybe the first week of March. I'll be able to log Rhode Island, New Hampshire, or Delaware. We'll see. You bring up a very good point, my friend. We're going to talk about that. So we've got logs to stall for our friend Sean Kuzco. There we go. I'm telling you, Jacob, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be you or him. I truly believe that. If he can hear Greenland, 3 Greenland stations, Alaska's got to be there. Jacob, speaking of, few new logs this week. 1380 WSYB in Rutland, Vermont. We're going back to Vermont again. For my third from Vermont in the log, 890 KYWN in Idaho. We're going back west again. I feel like there's an echo in here. Who was clearly on 50 kilowatt day power. Oh. This is why I say nothing is impossible, because there are going to be times when those stations that should be off are not, or should be down in power are not. You just got to catch them at the right time. That's how I got Seattle. They were non-directional. That's how I got, a bunch of us got KKOB out of New Mexico on 770. They were non-directional, right? So you get that one that should be signed off, but they're not on an unexpected frequency. Like you just go up to like 1230 or not 1230, but 1270 or something. And they're like, wait, these guys should be signed off or low power. And there they are, full power daytime. The switch just didn't work that night. And now you got a new one in the logbook. That's how that stuff happens. Let's see. 1110 KWVE Pasadena with a surprise fade up, and 590 WVLK in Lexington, thanks to KXSP in Omaha being off the air. Attached is an air check of 1110 KWVE California, who came up with a promo for the program Pastor's Perspective, as well as a few K-Wave IDs. And let me tell you something. Another thing that Jacob is really, really good at. This is one of the reasons why I'm so happy he's in the Slack channel, because he is my breaking news alert. Is Jacob is very good at finding those stations that are on day power or a daytimer that should be off and they're on at night, still on. He is super, super good at that. He doesn't forget to check the frequencies that a lot of us probably. I'm looking at myself in the mirror here that I go, well, that's so-and-so on that frequency. I'm not going to spend my time DXing that. I'm going to go over here to another place where I maybe have a little more open. Meanwhile, that station over here on so-and-so frequency is dead air, gone, or there's another one on day power you can hear underneath them. Jacob is really good at that. He's very, very good at that.
News Radio 1110 KFAB.
So they were the station underneath KFAB, in case you didn't hear the Pastor's Perspective promo that was in there. That was them underneath. So, and sometimes that's it. It's not even like where you go and you listen for KFAB. They're there. They're dominant. They're big. But do you have anybody underneath? Is there a signal underneath that maybe you're like, ooh, who is that? I'll never forget the night that I heard Puerto Rico on 1120 when I was living in Charleston. There was KMOX, loud and clear, booming, top of it. Everyone knows that's them. But there was Puerto Rico underneath. Or there was what's the station up in New York on 1120? I forget. WKAJ, I think is their call sign. Same thing. Just they were one night. I was actually showing my wife how to DX, and I was like, wait, who's that underneath KMOX? Because I was showing her KMOX. It was the first station I ever logged. I was showing it to her, and I was like, wait, hold on. Who's that underneath them? And I got a new log, right? I heard Venezuela underneath WBBM on 780. There's these times where you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to hear them. I got this station over here that's blown away. Those big stations, I've said this so many times, but those big stations clear out a path. They clear out a path. So that something is on higher power than they should be, on when they shouldn't be, or just the conditions are just right to bring that station into your world. Because that big station you're used to clears a path, it's easier for you to hear them underneath, especially if you have some technology like a phaser or like LinRad where you're phasing, or diversity mode in like the SDR play stuff, or the co-channel canceller with AirSpy, or the channel null on the Kiwis. Any of those kind of things like that you can use to help bring down or attenuate that big station that's on top. That only helps your cause, right? So, again, routinely checking those frequencies, and that's another part of the reason that we do what we do with these frequency challenges, to force us to go back and pay attention to frequencies maybe we don't do all the time. So new logs for our friend Jacob. Let's see. And then if you get, Sean says, if you get a whirl condition, stuff up north just disappears and the south opens wide. Yes. When I start seeing you guys are all talking about just a rash of stations out of Florida and Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia and Texas and Louisiana and stuff like that. When you guys up north are hearing all that kind of stuff, I'm like, ooh, let me go look down to the south and see what I got, because that means I'm getting even deeper, because you're hearing all the stuff I usually hear. Our last shout out here, we got our friend Walter Johnson. Walter is in Georgia, and he got himself 1010 WKJW Black Mountain, North Carolina, at a distance of 294.5 miles. Heard over XL, 1010 XL out of Jacksonville Beach. That is a pest station right there. And 1310 WYND in DeLand, Florida, 247 miles. So 2 new logs for our friend, Mr. Walter, there in Georgia. There you go. Well done, man. Yeah, 1010 XL. Like, even when I'm attenuating or I'm using the canceller or I have my antennas that are pointing away from them, they still sneak in. They're just so everywhere. You still got time to get some shout-outs in if you'd like. dxchallenges.com/shout-out. Send those in, and we'll get those read here this evening before we adjourn for the night. We'll do ours now. We'll go ahead and do our 2 that we got. So you guys heard one that we had earlier, to be RAY. They're in Indiana. I haven't put it in the logbook yet, but that was a new one. I mentioned earlier Alberta on 770 CHQR out of Calgary. That was just kind of up out of nowhere. Let me see. I think I have that posted here in the Slack channel. I think I posted that up. Let me go double check and see if I still have it. I'll fast forward to the spot where the ID was. Here we go.
Because people are more likely to be alone underneath further from healthcare and other support.
There was a mention there of the Canadian press. So now they're doing a sports update and they're talking hockey. That's always one of those clues. If you hear a lot, you hear, and now in sports, hockey. Pay attention. That's probably Canada. There's another mention of the Canadian press. QR Calgary. There it was. Now, I want you to know, I mean, this is another one of those examples. On 770, let me go back and pull up my my list here. On 770, I've got to get through WVNN here in Alabama. There is several very strong stations in Mexico, including XEACH out of Monterrey that comes in here like gangbusters into Louisiana. There are a couple of Cubans. There's a station in Florida. There is Colombia. So on that frequency, there's quite a bit there. But I'm using the advantage of my Northwest antenna to attenuate some of those signals, to especially the Colombians and stuff like that. But I still have Mexico to contend with, but I was still able to hear enough in there to have Alberta, Calgary, Alberta, coming in on 770 last night for a new one. That's, again, number 5 out of Alberta. And the other one, this is one of those that Jacob caught and mentioned in the Slack channel, 790 KXXX out of Colby, Kansas. They were loud. 5 kilowatt daytime power, and they were using every bit of it way past their bedtime when they should have been off or not on that 5 kilowatt power. They were owning 790. They were definitely on top of that frequency. Stephanie down in California, Southern California, heard them down there with their country music. So that was another new one for us. So that puts us our current total. We're now sitting at, once I add in the Indiana station, we're at 1,127 stations here in Mandeville. 846 now U.S. stations, if we count the one from Indiana from tonight. So there you go. Those are our shout-outs. And then we did hear a couple of stations out of Mexico on the FM side. Let me pull that up. I think there was 1, maybe 2 that were new. Let me go back in here and find those. Now I got that German krautrock song of ours in my head, which is good. It's actually a very decent song. 224, we had nothing new there. 23rd, we did have one new one, XHXV, out of Leon, Mexico. Radar, 88.9. Got them at 963 miles. So that was our new FM for this week that we were able to grab. So we'll go ahead and do that for ourselves. Yay! Same here, Jacob. Super loud. Just crazy loud. Super crazy loud. like big loud. Like even the stations in Houston and Dallas and some of those others are typically not as loud as these guys were here on 790 out of Kansas. So there we go. A couple new ones on AM, 2 or 3 new ones on AM, 1 new on FM. I call that a good week. That's a very good week. All right, let's talk about spring. It is about to be April or May. April. I'm getting ahead of myself. March 1st on Sunday, and that's going to be a very significant thing for one reason. So on the 8th at 2 a.m., your local time, daylight savings time begins. We spring forward. And you're going to lose an hour of sleep. I'm just going to be awake, so I don't actually lose anything. Because I am insomniac. I have come to learn. But what happens is that the FCC, when they're talking about the time that they use to calculate local sunrise, local sunset, the FCC says, okay, whatever your local sunset sunrise time is on the 15th of the month, that's what you use for the entire month. Because your sunset sunrise time changes over the course of the month. So they say, okay, whatever your sunrise sunset time is on the 15th of the month locally for you, that's the time of the hour that you're going to count as your sunset or sunrise, and you're going to either down power, sign off, sign on, or up power, whatever, right? That's when those changes happen. It's based off of what that time is on the 15th of the month. Well, for the first week before we get to that daylight savings time, now once that daylight savings time comes, right, you're going to be losing an hour. So you're actually going to be gaining an hour here of darkness this first week, where you're going to have some stations that are signing on early or maybe making some late shifts, things like that. With this first week, you might have a chance to hear some different stuff that you don't normally get to hear, especially sunrise. You should be recording sunrise every day this week. Like an hour before your sunrise to an hour after, maybe 2 hours before to an hour after, every day this week. Okay? So how can you use this to your advantage? Target some stations. We've talked about the sunset sunrise maps here before. I think I've got one here somewhere that I've got. I know Jacob usually posts them in the Slack channel when the new month begins. But you think about it, you look at the like the IRCA, NRC sunrise sunset maps, and it's got the lines, right, of this swath of the country. Their sunrise time is going to be at 6:45. This swath is at 7. This swath is at this time. So it goes across, right? And then you have the same thing for the sunsets on the other way. So use that sunset sunrise time and say, okay, I am at this point here. Like for me in New Orleans, where I'm Central Time Zone, my sunset sunrise time is going to be for each day this first week. Find out what that time is going to be, and then look at those stations that you have along those lines. And okay, I'm targeting. Let's say I need some stations in this particular state, or these particular stations I'm looking for. I know that they're going to be signing on or going to their day power at X time, because that's when they'll be doing it on the 15th of the month of this month. And so that's actually going to be an hour earlier for me next week. So let's say like South Carolina. I'm going to say, when are those stations, what's the time that they would be on the 15th of the month doing their sign on? And I say, okay, I'm going to now target those stations that are signing on now an hour earlier than they will on the 15th, or actually past the 8th. I want to start targeting those stations here at that hour earlier time. Make sense? Because that's, if they're supposed to go off at 6:45 on the 15th of the month, well, that's 5:45 until that time switch happens. So that's an hour earlier. You've got more darkness path now for you, especially, like I said, at sunrise. You have that darkness path for an extra hour before they're going to make that change and sign back, or when they're going to sign on. So you've got extra time, is what I'm basically trying to say. He said he's posted the March map in Slack. Thank you, sir. I knew I could count on. Here we go. We're going to pull it up here. This will help with the visual. Here we go. So, and the other thing to note here, too, is we're getting closer to the spring equinox, and we're getting closer to these lines, this terminator line where the termination between day and night is becoming more and more straight. And so most of the year it's this way or it's this way, right? There's an angle to it. When it's straight up and down, you're getting a completely different look at the band than you do when it's at an angle, right? When it's like this, and now you're like this. So, for instance, let's say normally I would have an angle that's like this. So this station here in Kentucky, and I might be in the same time zone or same time frame for sunset, sunrise, right? Whichever one it is. Me and a station in Kentucky might be in the same. Well, right now, that's actually going to shift. And so now me and stations in Missouri or Iowa or Minnesota are going to be in the same zone for that. So these vertical, once it gets more and more vertical, you're changing now which stations, which parts of the country are making their change at that time. So there are stations you're going to hear in this next week that you're probably not going to have a shot at until next year. That's the magic of what's about to happen for the next week. Now, the one in the fall is even better. When we're going from daylight savings to standard time, that one's even better. That one is really, really good. But this one is also really a good time, especially for sunrise. So look at these maps. You can get them from the IRCA. Get these in, look at them, and start looking at what you're wanting to hear and lining up these times. So you'll see here, the dash lines are the sunrise, the solid lines are the sunset. So dash, here's sunrise, here's sunset. And you notice they're pretty close to each other because we're getting close to that time when it's all vertical. So again, you're going to have stuff that's happening right now. These times are lining up in such a way you're going to have stations that are changing power, signing on, signing off, that you're not going to have that same time frame at any other point of the year. This is your shot. So get those target lists put together. Start looking at them. I know Rick from Omaha, this is one of those things that he talks about a lot as well. Is this week, the one in the fall and the one in the spring, how good these are. You know, a great place to sit and park and do this exercise? Graveyard frequencies. My goodness. That is a great place to park this time of the year. Now, they're not changing power or changing antenna patterns more than likely. They're definitely not signing on or off because they're 24 hours usually. But you're getting that straight up and down terminator line as it's going across. So you're going to hear some things on these graveyard frequencies over the next couple weeks that you're not going to hear any other time of the year. I highly recommend, at the very least, do some band recordings on sunrise. I would also do sunset because that's going to be a unique look as well. But at minimum, if you're low on hard drive space, at minimum, do sunrise for the next week from Sunday the 1st until we go to daylight savings. You're not going to regret it. There's going to be stuff you're going to hear and be like, oh, never heard that before. Yep, see, Rick, I knew it. Rick says my sunrise, sunset targets for March and April are at the ready. Yes, sir. This next week's the best week, but the month of March in general, because of the way that the termination line lines up. The month of March in general is really, really good. Really, really good for grayline. But this first week is going to be the best part of it because of that. You've got that period where you're still on standard time, but they're using daylight savings time calculations for their sunset sunrise times based off that 15th of the month. There you go. DX time. I want to chase some DX. What should we chase, guys? I know what I want to look for. I want to look for Oregon. Might be a little early for that. Let's go. Let's go look for Oregon.
The time though it stays on. And I did get no, I don't know about that. And I did get carried away. Alex, after all that, you went that far. You took it too far. I did get attacked.
Now we're not doing FM, but this DX session is brought to you by the Spectrum Monitor magazine, thespectrummonitor.com. Hey, look who's here!
Put her head next time. That's why.
You might find you a nice one. You might swipe right a few times.
Is that awesome?
So let's talk about these expanded band frequencies, that 1610 or 1620 to 1700. There are very few stations here. At nighttime, they're all 1 kilowatt. Because there is such a sparse mix, especially on frequencies like 1630, 1640. Because there are so few stations there, the ones that are there get out well. So that's why Barry heard Oregon from Tennessee. We have people hearing California from halfway across the country. I've heard several Californians on the X-band here in Louisiana. So if you're an East Coast person looking out west, this is a great way to try it. The expanded band is a great place to look for that. Vice versa. If you're out west looking for out east, give the expanded band a shot. I think it's a little harder for you guys going the other way than just East Coast going west, but still give it a shot. Because you would be surprised how far these signals reach with only 1 kilowatt. Because there's just nothing there. There's nothing there. So these signals actually do quite well. Take care, Carl. Jacob says 720 KFIR in Sweet Home, Oregon was in last night. We're going to have to add that to my list.
/play. Paid spokesperson. Time spent on application may vary. Online health questions required.
Fox Sports Radio is taking over YouTube, and you can be a part of it. Pay attention. Just go to
So right now we have KZLS. That's our Fox Sports station is KZLS up in Oklahoma.
Shows. 2 pros and a cup of Joe. Dan Patrick, Colin Coward. Wow. Camino and Rich. The Odd Couple with Rob Parker and
I think that there's a voice in there, kind of a... I'm pretty sure that's Wisconsin, WSJP. Oh, that reminds me, I can finish. I forgot about that. I only have one Wisconsin. I can finish Wisconsin that way. I heard Relevant Radio last night. See? The expanded band. We forget about it sometimes. But there's some good stuff there.
DX Central Live Top of the Hour Alert.
I completely forgot about that. I forgot that there was a second Wisconsin for me. I was like, how am I going to get a second Wisconsin? They're really hard to hear here. Outside of WAUK on 540, which is crazy to me considering how small their power is. But down low, those signals travel. Those long wavelengths travel.
call at 234-CARE to learn more.
The forecast this evening from the Chisholm Shore Broadcasting Weather Center, a service of Alva State Bank and Trust Company, right down the road for over a century. That's Alva State Bank and Trust member FDIC. Looking mostly clear this evening, light southerly winds through overnight. We'll drop down to a low of around 48. Tomorrow, sunny, a light westerly wind for the most part through the afternoon, with a high of 78. We could see some late night showers this Saturday night, with a low of 45. On Sunday, about a 30% chance of some showers, otherwise a high of around 65. For mornings and weather, go to inthedrive.com.
Our running back that you just took? Yes, and that's I don't know if Ashton Gentry is going to be a great running back. I don't know if he's going to be a Jahmyr Gibbs kind of player. I mean, he was fascinating in college. But this is the NFL. And this will be a big year for him coming up to see, are you able to rely on him? And there were times when he did. I mean, he had moments, but still.
I completely forgot about that.
By searching the Dan Patrick Show. And as always, you can listen to Dan Patrick live weekdays.
I've already got him in the logbook, but that helps me with the challenge.
On Fox Sports Radio. This is The Herd.
You got to be consistent.
With Colin Cowherd.
And if you look at the best teams right now in the NBA, I would argue it's OKC, San Antonio, and Detroit. Well, Detroit's 4 best players they drafted. OKC's best players, they got Chet Holmgren from Kankakee. The San Antonio Spurs. It's all draft and develop. And so since Jerry West left, the Lakers don't really draft. And even with Jerry West, it's just not what they do. And with the new CBA, you could say, well, what about Austin Reeves? You don't get credit for drafting him. He's undrafted. You didn't even draft him, and Rob Pelinka is not a scout. Rob was an agent who became a general manager. I'm not saying he's not a sharp guy, but his schooling and history is not in scouting. So the last 6 great Laker players are LeBron, Luka, AD, Shaq, Kobe, and Pau Gasol. It was transactional for all of them. It wasn't draft and develop.
This is The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Wow. Weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Dan Patrick.
Man, I can't.
Let's see if we can get North Dakota.
I once did. I used to be an absolute rally warrior. That's not exist anymore.
Marty McGee went on the road in the fall of 2021. And then we had a moment. I almost threw up on Mario Andretti on live TV, and that's where we're like, you know what? Maybe going out on Friday night isn't the best move.
Marty and McGee. Saturday mornings from 7 to 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the SEC Network. ESPN Studios. This is KRGI Waco, K222DC Waco, K265DB Temple, ESPN Central Texas. This is Sports Center.
Monday night for plenty of NFL off-season news coming out of the Combine in Indianapolis. First, the NFL Players Association Executive Committee has narrowed.
So we've got ESPN.
Executive Director. They have it down to a group of finalists.
Well, this is just a mess. This frequency is such a mess. We've got Waco, ESPN. We've got KWOD in Kansas City, which is BetMGM. And then north of them, we've got KQWB, which is Fox Sports. So you got 3 sports stations all in this nice little line right here. Different networks, each one right there in a line on 1660. Oh, boy. Chuck says, my favorite moment in these streams when you got North Dakota that time. Man, that was a great day. Because I had never heard North Dakota. Right? Getting New Jersey last week was a thrill because I needed them from here. But I've heard New Jersey before. I had never heard anything from North Dakota ever on AM until that night. So that was not just a Mandeville celebration. That was a lifetime of, when am I going to get these guys? When am I going to hear them? A great way to do these things is to match up with either the web stream if you can, but even better is the Kiwis, local Kiwis. So if you can find a Kiwi near the station you're targeting, and that's One of the things that I did this week for KQWB when I got them back in the log again this week for the challenge is I had Jacob's Kiwi up in Minnesota, pulled up, was listening to his Kiwi because he has North Dakota really nice. I paralleled with mine. I heard an echo. I was like, there it is. And with 3 sports networks on that frequency, each one being different, that works. Now, if there were 2 ESPNs and I heard an echo of ESPN, that doesn't help me. But each one of those is a different network. You're not going to have Fox Sports on ESPN. It's not. So that worked out nice. Plus, I heard local ads, too. So right now, Texas is owning it. I think I saw someone earlier mention, I think it was Mesa Mike, mentioned that the solar conditions were pushing south. We're a 10A, 2K, and a 2.5 BZ positive right now. But I think there was a little attenuation up to the north earlier, which sounds about right considering how loud Texas is right now. That's allowed us. I actually haven't heard Texas this week on 1660 until tonight. Take care, Dan. Let's hold on. Let's revisit that night, shall we? I think this will work. Oh, it won't work? Hold on. Let's revisit that night, shall we?
Oh my God!
The Piggy Barbecue in West Fargo is the area's #1 spot for legendary barbecue. Smoked daily using the freshest and highest quality meat and ingredients. Come in and enjoy the best ribs, brisket, and pulled pork in North Dakota. The Piggy Barbecue also showcases a full bar with the state's largest bourbon selection. Try our new menu and produce a burgers.
You're watching DX Central Live with Lloyd Van Horn, and that's a very wise thing to do.
That was pure unbridled joy and happiness. That was unfiltered. Like that was 100% natural reaction. I just what you saw was what I do. And also at the same time, here's what's interesting. At the same time that North Dakota was coming in that clip, you could hear a preacher in there as well. That was Puerto Rico. So we were getting Puerto Rico and North Dakota at the same time on 1660. That was pretty awesome. Now last week is our new one. I think I've got that one as well here. I'll pull this one up. Yeah, I'll pull this one up on screen. In case you missed it, this was last week. I'm going to try something here. We're going to switch this to my 35-degree northeast CAS. So this is a CAS pointing right at him.
Throughout the years, at various points to,
We got him! We got him, baby!
With the police sort of looking and following some sort of budget, but probably mostly my fault. Those discussions. At this stage, at this point in our lives, I'm considering. I'm looking at retirement, hopefully in the next few years, or the ability to retire. Is it worth it to continue to try and fight that battle? And it's sort of if we may do. And
it was the Northeast CAS that did it, man. Yeah, that was fun last week, getting New Jersey in the log from here, because I've tried for so long to do that and unsuccessful. That was a Jim Cantori Thunder Snow, wasn't it? Yeah. Accurate, actually, yeah. All right. Before we go, we got one more thing to talk about. One more thing to discuss. And I'm not making a huge point about it. I didn't talk about it earlier because I've done this soapbox quite a bit. But I want to mention it now because I know we have some newer folks that are watching here on the stream, either live or on the replay. And that is the month of March as it pertains to FMDX. This February and March are your 2 months that you can actually really use for some good preparation for the upcoming FM season. And what I mean by that is that we look for our setup. How does our feed line look? Our connections. Don't assume. Check. Is there a little wobble? Is there a little corrosion? Is there a little cleanup that needs to happen? How many years have you had that feed line? Maybe it's time to replace that feed line. I'm probably about to do that on my main log periodic this season, actually. I'm about to replace the feed line that goes from my Kit's KT501 amplifier all the way back to the shack because that one's been in place now for 5 years. It's time to be replaced. And I think before that, it was in service for 4 or 5 years when I was in Charleston. So it's time for that feed line to get swapped out. And so you take a look at your setup. Where do I need to make some tweaks? Where do I need some cleanup? Are there any components I need to swap out? Do I need a new splitter? Do I have like a janky connection on my splitter or on my amplifier or my pass-through from my window panel pass-through thing? All those different things. How about on the radio itself? Is there connection loose on the radio? Is everything good? And really give it a good test because those connections, those like F connectors, B and C's, those are the first thing that usually go when you're talking about your setup. If you've done your setup well, it's very rare that you're going to have like a major issue like with the radio or anything. It's usually connector that's going to be the problem. Especially anywhere where you have, like, for me, I have to unplug antennas during thunderstorms. So there's 1 or 2 plugs that always get unplugged every time. They're unplug, replug, unplug, replug. You're talking probably 20 or 30 times over the course of a season, at minimum 20 or 30 times. So you look at those connections as being weak points. So reviewing those, are there any upgrades you can do, any replacements that you can do? Here's the other thing. Do your band scan. Look, I get it. We're all familiar with our bands. We know our bands. But guess what? Bands change. Stations go away. Stations appear out of nowhere. Stations change frequency. Stations change format. Even if you've listened to your local band recently, stations change. Okay? So do a band scan. Make sure you're going methodically through frequency by frequency by frequency by frequency and notating what you've heard. Now, I've done this. I did a topic about the discussion about this recently on one of our streams, and I showed this sheet that I use, my spreadsheet, which I need to actually, I remember just now, make a public version for you guys to use as a template if you'd like. But you'll want to go methodically through and notate what you do and what you don't hear. Even if there's nothing there, notate that. And I also notate signal strength on every frequency, regardless if there's something there or not. Even if it's an open frequency, I want to know what the baseline signal strength is on that noise floor, that frequency. So if I'm sitting there and normally on any given day on a dead band, it's 110 dBm, negative 110 dBm, but now I go there and it's like a 90-something dBm, hold up, something's there. Maybe something's trying to come through. Maybe I got some sort of DX percolating up and trying to punch through. So doing your band scan right now. You got dead band conditions, no tropo, no E-skip. Do it now while you can. I promise you it will pay dividends for you in June, July, August. When you know your band, pay special, extra close attention to your open frequencies. I'm not talking about those frequencies where you have that HD sideband, right? We have WWL here, 105.3 as an example. We have a bunch of others, but as an example, 105.3 is WWL here in New Orleans. There's HD on 105.1. There's HD on 105.5. So those two frequencies have very strong HD that the skip, the DX needs to be stronger than that to overcome the capture effect and take over that frequency and let me hear audio, right? You have to be more strong than the signal that's there. That includes those HD sidebands. So I'm talking open frequencies. I'm talking there's nothing there. No signals, no local signals, no HD sidebands, nada. Pay extra close attention to those because during E-skip openings or potential E-skip openings, that's where you're going to look. You're going to start there first, especially on the lower end of the band, work your way up. I have a sequence that I do every time. I'm looking 88.1, which has a local-ish station, but it's overcome very easy. 88.1, 88.5, 88.9, 90.5, 90.9 when my local WWOZ doesn't have their HD on. 92.1 because I've got so much HD and other stuff in the lower end of the band. Those are my frequencies I check because those are the ones that realistically, if there's a decent enough E-skip opening, that can be where you'll find the signal. So 88.1, 88.5, 88.9, 95, 99, 92.1, 92.5, and then 94.5 and 95.1. That's my sequence. I'm just bouncing back and forth on those. If all of those are filled, then I'm moving up. I'm continuing to move up to my next sequence that I have. 100 point. Let's see. The next one would be 96.1, 96.9, 98. No, 99.1, 99.9, 101, and so forth. So you have your sequence in your head of where you're going to go. So that when the opening happens and that adrenaline rush hits, you're not out here going, oh, where do I go? Where do I go? Let me check around. You don't have to think about it. You know it. That band scan is how you're going to get that. So I haven't done mine yet. I got to do mine. I got to make sure my local band hadn't changed on me. I am right there. I haven't done it yet. Full confession here. Full transparency. I need to do my band scan. I need to get off my butt and do it probably this weekend. So get your band scan done. Like I said, even if you know your band, even if you're like, I know my band like the back of my hand. I do too. I'm still doing a band scan because things change. Formats change, RDS codes change, call letters change, slogans change, stations change frequency, stations disappear, stations show up out of nowhere. It happens. It happened to us last year. We had about 3 or 4 different big changes on my local band that I hadn't caught until I did my band scan. So just something to put in your preparation for the season. You're going to hear me talk more and more and more about FM as we get closer, especially when we get in April. Next month, we're really diving in. We're diving head first into FM. But now you're going to hear more and more talk about FM as we go into the next month and a half, getting closer to the season because you got to get your prep work done. You got to do your band scans. You got to get all your gear situated. I've got a little bit of antenna work left to do, but then I'm done and I'm ready to roll. For the first time, I don't think I have any new antennas to put up this year. I got that one feed line I got to replace, but I think the rest of it, I'm in a good place. I want to say that. So yeah, get your checklist of what you got to get done before the season starts. Get that put together and start working on it. And then March and April are your last chances to get those done because May 1st, you want to have everything done. Band scans already done. You want to have your antenna projects done, all your setup done, any web servers you're putting up, any autologgers you're putting up, all of that needs to be done before May 1st. Because once May 1st hits, at any moment, it can start up. So you want to be ready. All right. You guys are having fun over here in the chat, looks like. Awesome. All right, that's going to do it for tonight. I think we've hit all the topics we want to talk about. Patrons, those of you who are still on, our patrons, go to our Studio C, our Patreon Studio C, and there's a poll there on timing, preferred dates and times for our upcoming Google Suite logbook discussion. Select all the times that are good for you, that you prefer. I'm going to take the top 2 or top 1, and I'm going to get something scheduled probably for next week. We're going to do this next week. I was going to do it this week, probably do it next week. So we're going to do that Google Suite for logbooks, patron-only Zoom call, working session probably next week. I don't want to influence the votes. You vote for what days and times work best for you, based off the choices that are there on that poll. And we'll get that scheduled up and get it going. That's for our patrons. If you want to be a patron, patreon.com/DXCentral. And thank you to all of our patrons, because you guys, you're amazing. You're making sure we continue to bring some really cool stuff that I have in the works right now for this upcoming FM season in the summertime. The content creation's about to get fun. We're about to do some cool stuff. So you guys make that possible and help us keep doing the stuff we're doing here on the live stream and everything else. To our sponsors, the International Radio Club of America, ircaonline.org, National Radio Club, nationalradioclub.org, and the Spectrum Monitor magazine, thespectrummonitor.com. For all of our sponsors, thank you for your support. We appreciate you guys very, very much. For the rest of our audience here that's still around, we appreciate you being here as well and sticking with us through the evening. Some great DX tonight and hopefully some more great DX for you this week. Hope the conditions continue to be productive for you and maybe some surprises thrown in there every once in a while as well. Take care, my friends. We'll see you again next Friday night, our last of the standard time live streams. We'll talk about that next week because that will be changing our UTC start time. Once we go to daylight savings time, that changes our UTC start time. So we'll talk about what that means next week. So take care, my friends. Best of DX. We'll check you next time.
This has been the DX Central from the Static Podcast. If you are interested in sponsoring this podcast, let us know by emailing sponsors@fromthestatic.net. If you have a story to share for our Stories from the Static series, send those to our email address, stories@fromthestatic.net. Be sure to join us for our live DX live stream every Friday night at 23:45 UTC, 18:45 Central Time on our YouTube channel or at dxcentrallive.com.
The DX Central from the Static podcast is copyright 2025, Lloyd Van Horn, DX Central. All rights reserved. No portion of this podcast may be rebroadcast or reused without the express written authorization of Lloyd Van Horn and DX Central. Be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, as new episodes will be posted regularly. Join us next time for the DX Central from the Static podcast.